found a really interesting article when I was sort of looking around the internet about choice of career. Having read it, I realised that it was a similar set of information that could be used for any career. The sort of questions that were being asked are around what people want from a career and whether they think they're going to be able to get that from the career they've chosen. So that was my starting point. Having started by doing a little bit of reading around careers in tourism and hospitality, I decided that it would be worth doing a similar piece of research on students, and therefore designed a questionnaire that looked something like this one that you've already seen. So if I scroll down, there's lots of questions just in case there's interesting or useful information, but I've also got questions that are very much like those questions on the article that I just showed you. So this formed the basis of my data gathering, along with all the other potentially interesting questions, and I gathered data in order to analyse it. The questionnaire that we looked at earlier was designed using Google Forms. One of the very useful features of this is that it will store responses from each participant in a spreadsheet which can be downloaded to Excel. What we can see here is that data. It looks a little bit messy and hard to make sense of, simply because it needs formatting and organising. I'm going to start to tidy it up and talk to you about what I'm doing at each stage. The first thing I'm concerned about is those titles, because I can't read them. So I'm going to select all the titles, and then I'm going to right click and I'm going to format the cell. So I want it to be centered height-wise. I think it would help if I turn the text around, simply because there's a lot of questions. I'm going to wrap the text so that it fits inside a box instead of going over the edge and being hidden, as you can see now. I'm going to make the font bold to make it stand out, and I'm also going to fill in the boxes in a light grey colour so that they stand out. So I've selected a number of options here in the format cells. I'm going to click on OK, and that looks a little bit better, I think. At least I can read all of those. I still can't read some of the others. So now I'm going to select the other text, go down to the bottom, and I'm going to do the same thing. Right click, choose format cells. I'm going to change the alignment so that it's wrapped, and I'm going to centre it height-wise so it doesn't look a little bit odd. Okay. An improvement. But still there's a lot of overlapping information. Still not everything is clear to read, for example here. So the next task I want to do is to change the widths of the cells. Now I'm going to try by clicking on the top left square and then double clicking on any one of the lines for the columns on the blue strip. So I've got a double-edged arrow on a line, double click, and what it should do is it should jump every cell that was highlighted, which in this case was all of them, to the width needed to fit in the text. So some of them have become quite a lot larger and some of them have become quite a lot smaller. on some of them. You can see here are wrapped around, and we should now be able to read all of the text. The next thing that I notice about this is that it includes a number of different program areas. If we look at column D, just enlarge that a little. So column D is the industry that they're studying for, and you can see it's got a whole range of things: marketing, events, business, and so on. But I said that my interest was only in hospitality and tourism. So now I have to filter out all of those industries that I have no interest in. And to do that again, I select all of the data. And I use the data function on Excel to filter. And what that does is it puts a little arrow on each column. The column I'm interested in, as I said, was D. So if I use the little drop down arrow for column D, you'll see that it groups all of the responses and categorises them. One of the problems with asking an open question where people can type in any response is that later on you have to organise those responses and categorise them. Using the spreadsheet, I can do that quite easily. At the moment, all of these are selected. I'm just going to take the tick off select all, and then I can go through and decide which categories are within hospitality or tourism. So I'm going to select catering, hospitality, hospitality and business management, hospitality industry, hotel and food, managing hospitality, spa and hospitality, TBM stands for tourism business management, tourism and leisure, and the tourism industry. So I think I've selected all of those that are within the category that I decided to research. So if I click on OK, it will exclude all of those that are not within those groupings. So you can see, if you look down the side, that you have missing rows, and you can see for column D there's a little filter symbol so that we know it's been filtered. So that's reduced the data we have to include only those rows or those sets of information that are relevant to our research. Before we move on, it's probably advisable to take a copy of what we've got. So I'm going to select all the data again, and that's all the filtered data. And I'm going to go to copy it and go to a new sheet, and instead of pasting it, I'm going to paste it as a value. By doing that, I post exactly what I could see before, and therefore all those missing rows have just been completely excluded. But unfortunately it's gone messy again. But I'm not worried about that, because if I go back to my previous sheet, I do have all of this formatted. So I'm going to select it all. I'm going to go to Format Painter. Then I'm going to go back to my copied data. And there we are. Just clicking on the cell puts that copied format in this sheet. What I haven't copied here is the column sizes. So I'm going to select it again. I'm going to right click any of those columns, go onto the line between the two letters, see the double headed arrow and double click. And hopefully, if we scroll across, everything now fits within a cell. Doesn't look quite so tidy. Maybe I need to select the columns, just like before, and to double click and if double click doesn't work, just enlarge them and then try double click. So now at least the words aren't split over two lines. If I select it again and double click, the line should now be selected to the minimum height, and I think they still look very, very tall, those rows. So, and that's because some of the columns, like the last one, needs a lot of text. So I'm going to make those last four columns much wider, and then try again, and that should tidy it up nicely. That's much better. And I'm going to put some borders on this. And I can put borders once I've selected all the text using this little drop down arrow and show all my borders. And there we go. So now we have data in a more presentable format, but that only includes those programs that we're interested in. Okay, so the data is ready for analysis.